And we're just going to roll right into our next panel. The theme of the next panel is going to be local platforms, partnerships, trying to leverage the power of local with Weather Channel. We're going to hear how they're working with some local broadcasters and Hearst Television, and then a group of companies that are working together on the broadcaster side to create a news offering called News On. And here they come. So we have Louis Gump, who's the CEO of News On. Ryan Davis is the Vice President of Local Platform for the Weather Company. Jocelyn Lee's Director of Digital Business Development for Hearst Television. So come and grab a seat.
Thank you.
And Ryan, we'll start off with you, and I think you have a short video to show to set the mood here, and then we're going to go in and talk about some of these, how to get to scale and local, and how you can form partnerships at the local level. You're all coming at it from slightly different perspectives, so I think we'll have a fun exchange here and get some insights into different ways to try to crack this opportunity in local and what's working or not. Louis, you're sort of on the front end of it so far, and Ryan and Jocelyn, you've been doing it for a while, so you have different kind of perspectives. But it should be, I think we'll have some fun in this panel. So you have a little video you want to kick off to get our
we can do that.
Blood pressure up and pounding to.
We'll get everyone excited.
Yeah. Good.
Now you can find and recruit new customers like never before by reaching out to them on their smartphones, tablets, and laptops in exactly the right place at just the right time with precisely the right products. Welcome to the Power of the Weather Channel, available exclusively in your area through the unique partnership you're learning about today. Right now, thousands of potential customers are using the Weather Channel app. They're visiting our website.
We've got quite a story for you coming up.
To get their forecast, these people happily give us their current locations and home zip codes, so we know exactly where they live and where most of them are at this very moment. More than anyone else, the Weather Channel knows how forecasts and real-time weather conditions impact consumer actions. As a result, we can now offer your brand a dynamic weather-triggered ad strategy to optimize your campaign on our app and website. We call it Weather Parting, and there's nothing else like it. Virtually any kind of business can capitalize on this unique opportunity. Auto dealers can target customers who live and work within a precise radius around their dealership. Is it really hot or cold? That's prime time for AC and heating installers to zero in on prime neighborhoods. Lots of rain means dangerous roads, more accidents, and zip-targeted personal injury clients, and much more. It all adds up to give you the right advertising products. Smart, efficient, with high click-through rates and contextual messaging that really works. You can target by state, DMA, or even zip codes, and optimize your buy with a range of weather conditions. Available in a variety of ad formats on both web and mobile. This unique opportunity is a smart way for local businesses to generate big results. Our local media partner does a great job of reaching some of your customers, and the Weather Channel's hyper-local experiences reach even more.
Let's get you in front of the weather.
Together we give you amazingly powerful reach and some of the most precise targeting available today with little audience overlap. Use the power of the Weather Channel to bring in new customers and grow your business. It's amazing out there.
So weather does get pretty local, and we even experienced a little weather shift here, a little cooler today than it has been. And Ryan was kind enough to invite me to speak to a group of broadcasters coming in and sharing some data. Some of it's secrets, we can't talk about it, but thank you, Ryan, for participating in that IAB Local Buyers Guide. You gave us a nice case study there. But you, one of the things you'll say, I'll tease a little bit here, is you have the biggest sales force in the company, right? Partnering with all the local broadcasters that you do. So, I mean, your kind of insight is that we've got a big company, and you're kind of wearing a blue suit. It's IBM blue suit.
You're getting ready.
It's got checks, though.
Exactly.
Easing into it.
You know, data analytics platforms. But the experience was maybe we can drive more revenue if we try to flow this through local channels and utilizing, you know, the kind of awesome feet on the street that your broadcast partners have, but with a digital product. I mean, not just the over-the-air product, it's a digital product. And how's that working? I mean, it seems like from the case study, there's some pretty exciting lift once you localize these campaigns. And what's going on?
No, I mean, sales is just part of it. Obviously, I mean, it has to solve a problem or a challenge for both sides of the parties to be a good partnership. For us, the benefit's fairly obvious. We had these great ad products targeting based on location, targeting based on weather, and they were succeeding with, you know, with national advertisers. But we had no way to take those products down to reach the small and medium-sized business, who also is incredibly affected by weather and incredibly affected by location. You look for partners who can do that, and the clear best partners for us were the strong local broadcasters, so Hearst, Gray, and the challenge we hope we can solve for our partners is in the old, I think of everything on the framework of you take your audience, you multiply it by the amount they engage, and then you multiply that by how you monetize them, and you have your revenue in the end, right? And in the traditional forms of media, I used to work in the newspaper world. You know, a lot of the audience and the monetization took care of itself. It was pretty well established. But as you move over to digital, what I hope we can provide is, with this partnership, we can provide additional audience reach for both advertising and for the wonderful content being produced by our partners, Hearst, Gray, Meredith, Tribune. And we can also provide monetization capabilities, this ability to target based on location and based on weather, that might not be might not have already been or weren't already in the existing toolkit that they were selling. So from our side, it's been a rousing success, and hopefully Mike and Jason and Jocelyn would say the same thing.
So is he telling us the truth here?
He is. He's true to his word. The Weather Channel has been a great partner for us. I mean, in general, Hearst is always just looking for the most premium partners to work with.
Right.
And the Weather Channel, it really doesn't get
my
any better.
wallet out now. Thank you.
Yeah. So they've got the national
We get
brand.
a commission on these testimonials.
Exactly. We'll talk afterwards.
Exactly.
You know, they're a category killer, and people love the Weather Channel, and they also provide that scale. So that was just a really good fit for Hearst Television, and as well, their other partners. We have the deep local sales expertise,
Right.
so it's a great fit.
That's excellent. Well, I'm just going to jump around a little bit. So, Louis, you know something about partnerships and broadcasters. Tell us a little bit about News On and what that partnership looks like and what you're looking forward to.
Well, it's really energizing to have a chance to create one of the next iconic apps. That's what we're trying to do. And if you look at my iPhone today, I've intentionally lined up 4 apps. Here comes more props for the Weather Channel, by the way. The first one is ESPN, which I did not work at.
Ding, ding.
The second one is CNN, which I did work at.
Yes.
The third one is the Weather Channel, which I did work at.
Louis started our mobile business into
Thank you.
full disclosure.
I'll bring out my wallet too. and the fourth one, because there's room for 4 apps and there's right across, is News On.
Yeah.
We just launched it in November. We've been in the market for a little over a month. For anybody who hasn't heard of it, the tagline is local news nationwide. Here's what it is. It's a collection of the live broadcasts and time-shifted broadcasts from 119 TV stations across the U.S. in 91 markets, covering 75% of the U.S. population. We have at least 1 TV station in all of the top 10 markets, 18 of the top 20 markets, and 43 of the top 50 markets. We have a total of 9 now, major station groups. We announced 5 back in June, but it grew to 9. 9 major station groups that are involved. Our investors are the ABC-owned stations, Hearst, which, by the way, incubated and gestated this, and Roger Keating there in particular has just been amazing with it. Cox, Raycom, Media General, Hubbard Broadcasting, we just announced as a 6th investor, And then we've got 3 more companies, which are Graham, Berkshire Hathaway, and Tegna also has a couple of stations in. So 9 major broadcasting groups and more on the way. In fact, I just had a conversation earlier this afternoon with somebody who's super interested. And the goal is to reach 100% of the markets in the U.S. So just as you put in a zip code on the Weather Channel app and you get weather, when you put in a zip code or a location in the News On app, you're going to get live coverage of what is going on. And there's a lot more about the use cases, but I just want to wrap there. A point about social media for today, because we were chatting beforehand.
Yeah.
All of us have Twitter handles. Mine is @LewisGump. Ryan's is?
@RyanMDavis07.
And Jocelyn?
@ByJocelyn, BYJOCELYN.
And
@RDC.
So
why not 2 zeros? So
yes.
007.
So if anybody is, really interested in Twitter, we wanted to make it easy for you.
Oh, yes, great. Thank you, Liz, for that. That's great. So a little bit more about what you're doing at Hearst.
Yeah, so I manage
Your
all of
weather,
our
your News
digital
On?
partnerships. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's these great partners. So the Weather Channel partnership is, it's part of it is the reselling, but part of it is also video sharing.
Yep.
What else? I manage our native ad initiative, which we just rolled out a little bit earlier this year. I manage our other video syndication partnerships, and as you can imagine, there are a variety of other digital deals that come through, and I manage all of those.
That's great. So Ryan, I want to go back to you in the local platform that you have built out and continue to build out in different ways. Is that everybody's like totally synchronized and executing, or is it herding cats, or somewhere in between?
No, I've actually been really surprised and impressed at how we've been able to scale, and that's thanks to our partners. I mean, that video that was shown was about the advertising capabilities, was about what we can do to help reach a new audience with new products for our partners as they walk in the door at an SMB. But as Jocelyn just referenced, it goes beyond that. Our goal is first to take the advertising piece further, to do partnerships. We did a partnership with Ford at the national level where we get Ford's buy-in that the Weather Channel is a pre-approved product for local co-op dollars, and then our local partners are the only way for those Ford dealers to spend those dollars. And then to expand beyond. Every partnership starts better when you're making money together. So that's where we started with advertising. But the video sharing piece, it's completely complementary. We have great national weather video. Our partners have great local weather video. We should bring all of that together because between the two of us, we reach just about anybody who's checking the weather in any market. So why shouldn't that consumer, going back to Lewis's point of thinking of the consumer first, why shouldn't that consumer, whichever product they're using, be able to get the best of both? And that's what we're trying to do.
And so digital is great, and Hearst is such an innovative part of what's happening in the broadcast part of the industry coming into digital. How do you organize a sales effort behind all the inventory that you're creating? It's the local TV sellers, and they're selling everything. Does it get confusing for them to do that? Do you kind of specialize by product group or client group?
They sell everything.
Yep.
So they sell for our O&O sites. They sell for our mobile app, which we redesigned earlier this year and has done really well. We have them sell for the Weather Channel, and we also have something called the Hearst Core Audience, which is another audience extension product. So they sell all of that, plus the native initiative that I mentioned. They, they keep up with the times, and they keep up with the industry, and we don't specifically segment by, you're just going to sell native or you're just going to sell that. I think that they have a lot of assets in their toolkit, and that helps them become more efficient and just offer more comprehensive benefits to the advertiser in the end, at the end.
Talk a little bit more about the native initiatives that you've got going.
Yeah, so this is something that it took us a while to walk up to. I think that for any traditional media company, there's always that tension of let's just make sure we keep that separation between church and state. Hearst is no different. We've always been very careful to think about how we present the editorial and the user experience, and we want our users to understand what is advertising and what isn't. So in partnership actually with another team at Hearst Newspapers, we've been able to build out a native product. It's really premium. There's a content marketing team that helps us build out the editorial piece. There's articles and slideshows and videos. It's quite bespoke. And our local sellers have really found really positive response in the market. So it's done really well, and we're really excited for what's to come in 2016.
For native, just one more question on that. Does the success or how effectively you're able to sell it vary by different business categories, or is it kind of everybody likes this, it really works?
Do you mean which categories tend to lend themselves?
Yeah.
We've seen success with nonprofits.
Yep.
We've seen success with medical, weight loss, hospitals, and I think we'll see a lot more coming from the financial services industry as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really about making sure that not only is the native experience really thoughtful and really premium, but we want to make sure that it blends in a way that makes sense with our sites and our apps, so it works.
Yep. And so, Louis, you're talking about all these station partnerships and, kind of local news, what was it, nationwide national news?
Local news
nationwide local
nationwide.
news, yeah. And so you have a sales force of 5,000 people or something? Tell us about your sales force.
Oh, it's 4,999. Well, I should probably start with the content itself, and then go to the ad sales. So we're trying to solve a really basic problem that local TV stations have, and that is no matter how big you are, and I know there's some folks in the audience who are connected to local TV station groups in various ways. No matter how big you are, you're still covering a minority of the U.S. population. And also, even if you covered a majority, still there would be difficulty getting distribution through the app stores. And so what ended up happening is that there's a big gap in on the iPhone, iPad, Android phone, Android tablet, connected TVs, including Roku, where we appear, because nobody's big enough on their own, unlike the national media brands. And so what we're trying to do is solve that problem and then get distribution. And if we do this well, then we're complementary to anything that the local TV stations can do. For starters, we'll capture the people who aren't going to download an individual station app, but are going to follow local news and are passionate about it. The next thing that we do is cover people who are either traveling from outside of an area into it or traveling from your area outside of it. Either way, you can win on that one, and the local TV stations get the coverage. And really, we got into these interesting discussions, which usually last about 15 minutes before we get past it. But it's like, well, hey, I got my station app, so why would I get news on? Because then would you cannibalize me? And their answer is, well, no, not really. Beyond the fact that we're just video, and the station apps have a lot more functionality, really what we're trying to do is capture the people who haven't already downloaded the app anyway. Right? So that tends to resonate, and people who are digitally forward tend to be very receptive to this and aggressively want to go do it. The next thing is with ads. So we've been mostly focused on consumer functionality up to now. However, dynamic ad insertion is a critically important capability, and what we're doing then is working with the ad sales forces with the local TV stations, because that's where the majority of the monetization is going to occur. Most of the selling doesn't take place through News On. We're enabling the local TV stations to add this to their inventory, which is another reason why they like it. Aside from usage, they get the monetization. And then last but not least, we haven't yet landed on the specific sales strategy forever for our own inventory, but we're still looking at a couple of options.
And you've got, so the partnerships, you gave one example of a station, am I cannibalizing myself? But you've actually achieved something with your partners that is a little bit rare in the history of broadcasting. In the same market, you've got broadcasters partnering together.
Well, that's right. And in fact, we've done a lot of research, and we try to be very data-oriented about this. And one of the findings of the research, one of the first findings, which is probably self-evident to a lot of people here, is a lot of people like the idea of nationwide coverage. For example, I'm going to give you two. For those of us who fly to New York from time to time, if President Obama is traveling to New York, a lot of people want to know what the traffic is like and which way to go. You can tune into ABC7 and figure that out. And here in L.A., I'll give you another specific example. We had, not surprisingly, and with this horrendous event in San Bernardino, last week. We had the largest level of simultaneous users in our relatively short history at this point last week, because people wanted to find it. They wanted to find a reliable source, not just any source, but a reliable source. We sent an app alert, and immediately we were able to get people to tune in, and we were very on it. We were, for many people, the first notification that something was going on in LA. There's really high utility to that. Right? And so then what we're finding is that the stations say, hey, we are going to get on board with this because it helps us to build our business, and it's not just like a rearguard action to stop decline in certain demographics, but it's actually a way to add millennials to the audience, to add usage to the audience. And if we do this well, if you look at our numbers a couple of years from now, we're going to be a pretty important part of any participating station's digital audience. And the last piece to your question about multiple stations, our research tells us that the more stations we have in a market, the more interested people are in our offering.
Sort of a network effect.
There's a network effect. And so, whereas there is some concern, and I'll be the first to say it, some people say, well, I'm not so sure if I want to be stacked up right next to my competitor. The answer is, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of competitors for sources of local news. Do you want a local news, TV news, which tends to be bedrock of community? Do you want that to continue to be the bedrock, or do you want to allow it to fragment? And those who believe in making sure that we reinforce the power of TV local news are going to participate.
Well, let me come back to you in the local platform that you're managing. Where are you seeing successes? Where are you seeing challenges and opportunities that you're going to be going after working with all these local stations?
Well, I think a lot of, in some ways, some of the opportunities are similar to what Louis is talking about. Because I think what's so fascinating about this as we sit here is that, if you're sitting in Jocelyn's seat, you have fantastic local content. You have fantastic relationships with local SMBs on the marketing side. And you're looking for ways in this new world to get that out. You're looking to find that audience and reach them. And you're looking to find that audience both for your content directly and for your advertisers. And you face this decision of, you face a decision of different ways you can do it. And I think it speaks smartly that Hearst is doing both, right? The banding with its other brothers.
Who do you like better?
Well, I think kind of stepping back a little bit from what Ryan's saying, I think that the platforms that a lot of people go to today, Google or Amazon, Apple, whatever it is, those platforms are built really well for national brands. That's just how it works. If you go and Google San Bernardino fires, you might get CNN that rises up to the top.
Or Google Atlanta. If you Google name of a city and weather, you're going to get going to get our result first, right? So how do we carry your content into that spot in the top of the search results?
Right. And so I think News On and other efforts like that, it's a great example of how you kind of have to collaborate, right? You have to create that voice and you have to speak up, and that's how you can basically make yourselves seen and heard and surface up to the top. So I think that's kind of the macro view of that.
And those national partnerships are, to your question of where do we take this next, on the content side, it is the partnerships that if you Google Atlanta weather, if you Google Los Angeles weather, the Weather Channel is going to be your first result. Google's come to us and said, "Gosh, we'd love to have we'd love to have video to go with that." Well, dirty little secret, we don't make any weather, we don't make any video about weather in Los Angeles, not just because there's not much weather in Los Angeles, but because we make national video. Well, now that we have stitched together this national network, we can bring the best content from those markets where it should be, to the top of the Google search results page. Same thing on the advertising side. I talked about Ford, but how many companies around the country have massive amounts of co-op dollars that they push out to the local markets? Well, they'd love for they'd love for there to be a solution that they could use in markets around the country, and they'd love even better if with that solution came the best marketing consultants in town who'd walk in the door and tell their folks how to do it. Well, we can do that now. And I don't know anyone else who can do that, actually. We can have someone walk in the door and do it. So the next step for us, now that we've established the framework and gotten some fantastic beginning results, is to take use our national brand to do those national partnerships on the advertising side and the content side to get the best local content and the best local sellers in the right doors.
I'll use our last few minutes here and just ask you each to comment on something that you're particularly excited about coming up in say, 2016 or so. We talked about a lot of different activities. Do you have a favorite one that you think you're looking forward to happen, or what do we kind of look for from you guys?
For us, it's going to be, more video in more places. So we obviously have our local breaking news video. We have a lot of that content. In the last year or so, we've invested more in creating just more digital originals, stuff that's going to be more likely to appeal to millennials.
Right.
And so that's done through some internal partnerships, like working with Hearst Digital Studios. They produce a couple of bite-sized what just happened or what you missed videos that we put up on our sites in our apps. But we've also started creating more evergreen, kind of clicky, feel-good content. We call them views, V-U-Z. You can find it on YouTube, views.tv. And I think in 2016, you'll see a lot more of that. We'll be finding new formats. It'll be not just on Facebook and in our apps, but on other platforms, other social networks, and I'm really excited for that.
Louis, everything you're doing so new, I'm sure you're excited about everything. Can you pick your favorite child to just comment on a little bit?
I can pick two.
Okay, I'll take it.
You're right. There's a whole bucket full, but the first one is if our goal is to create a truly iconic app, meaning an app that's in the top 5 or 8 that a whole bunch of people use, then we have to gain scale over the next year. And we have a whole bunch of people, kind of a small army of the willing, among distributors, TV stations, including station groups, whole station groups who are going to promote the heck out of news on, and also a lot of social media interest. We got this tweet from somebody who downloaded our app, and they say, "I'm so happy you're there because I was on my treadmill, and the TV was out on the treadmill, and so I turned on news on." And so we're going to use that. We hadn't thought of this. I wish I could say we were smart enough, but we weren't. But we're going to use this to create a campaign about why people use news on.
Right.
And so that's going to be really fun as we build an audience. And I've had the privilege to do it before, and we're going to do it again. And I'm personally really excited about it. I love that stuff. The second one is, though, expanding the markets. We've got 75% of the U.S. covered. Ryan and I were talking a little bit before about this, and Hearst has been a big advocate as I've talked with him. Conceptually, even though from a tonnage standpoint, L.A. matters more than Shreveport, on the other hand, conceptually, L.A. is the same as Shreveport. You want every single location.
Right.
And so we've got a lot of stations and station groups that have said, hey, how do I get involved in this? And from that standpoint, I can't say that we have something up on our wall that is like a horizontal thermometer that measures this. We probably should. In fact, maybe I'll take that back and do it. But just something that every single market that we cover, every next chunk of the population that we're able to serve with locally relevant content is a happy day for me. And we're going to keep doing it until we got all 210.
Nicely put. And so, Ryan, you and I have been going back a little bit about IBM, and that's kind of exciting, right? As one opportunity.
I'm very excited from the short-term narrow to what we're talking about here perspective. I'm excited about how excited they are about what we're doing right here, about the local platform.
Yep.
So that's exciting. But I'm excited that if you think from a platform perspective, that we have shifted our thinking as a company from a publisher to a platform, and that if you starting now, we're bringing the ability for a sales force that's not our own and a content creating force that's not our own to bring their content onto the Weather Channel platform. Well, now our platform is even bigger, right? If an advertiser or the content that our partners are creating should be reaching somebody in a car, and IBM controls the telematics of that car, we should be able to get it there. That's not what I'm excited about in 2016, though, because that's let's get this thing sold and integrated and all that first. But I'm excited about the possibilities of it.
That's great. Please help me thanking our panelists. Thank you so much. Really good job. Very interesting.
Thanks for having us.
That's great. Thank you. Jocelyn. can't let you get away. Thank you. And Mitch is going to come back up and bring us right into the next session. All yours, Mitch.
Thanks, Rick. Well, we're almost to the end of the day, and we're going to talk about technology. As we've heard throughout the day and yesterday, data is becoming increasingly important to our ability to partner, our ability to address and personalize customer experience to individuals and to communities. And for many years, I've been working on developing workflows and content management systems for editorial companies, and am incredibly intrigued by a project pulled off last year by the Weather Company, who was just on stage. They did a massive migration of their entire infrastructure to Drupal, which is an open source content management system, which is has allowed them to do 82,000 separate versions of the site and manage it on a reasonable basis. And so I'm very fortunate to have a couple of people who worked on that project here today. Well, rather, Matt, you didn't, but you are talking about it. But we want to look into the business reasoning around making these kinds of technical investments and some of the criteria that you use when making those decisions, and talking with partners about what you might want to do together. So we are joined by Matt Palladino, who may be the only speaker whose house you can see from the hotel.
Right up the street.
And Matt is a senior solutions architect with Acquia, which is the commercial developer of the Drupal platform. And also Dave Terry, who's a partner in Media Current, an Atlanta-based design, development, and digital strategy company. Media Current actually executed the design and development in partnership with Acquia. And so, Dave, why don't you tell us about that project and the scope of what was involved?
Sure. So, Mitch, part of the reason why I'm here is because I'm so passionate about evangelizing the value proposition of open source, and particularly Drupal. So, you know, Matt and I have talked to a lot of people in the industry, and there were always skeptics who questioned whether Drupal could scale. Is Drupal an open source secure? And in November of 2014, when we launched weather.com, which is literally, some people don't realize, during inclement weather and hurricanes, the highest traffic site in the world, all of those kind of skeptics and concerns were put to rest. And now that we're 13 months into the launch, we're able to capture some really good before and after numbers. And the validation is there. Open source does scale. It is secure. The Weather Channel has had, resounding success. You heard from Ryan how they have all of these different touch points, and one of the biggest factors that went into their decision was, can they find a platform that's flexible enough and offers the innovation that they need to integrate with all of these third-party tools. So we're excited about the future of the weather.com site and what the possibilities are with Drupal particularly.
And Matt, can you tell us just a little about Acquia as a company and how it relates to the open source project Drupal?
Sure. So first things first, Drupal is not an Acquia product. Acquia is the professional services product support organization that stands behind Drupal. So think of how Red Hat is to Linux. Red Hat was spun up, the company, right, to support businesses, enterprises needing technical support or warranties, guarantees, things like that. Also, eventually there became commercially available versions of Red Hat Linux. Acquia is very similar. We've developed a myriad of products and services that complement Drupal. We have developed a Drupal Tune specific cloud, which is currently what weather.com is deployed on. And then we provide all the technical support, so 24/7, 365 monitoring of the site, the application, the scaling of the cloud as needed, and so forth and so on.
So Dave, now you have dedicated Media Current to specializing in Drupal design and development. When the Weather Channel came to you and laid out their aspirations for more efficient editorial management, for better control of bandwidth and lowering their costs and so forth, what were the criteria that you started off recommending that you and they examine together?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's I wish I could tell you that I was in a cigar smoked room and there was a dramatic closing when a big technology decision like choosing Drupal is made, but it's really not like that. It's a series of just sort of evaluations that happen along the way. So the Weather Channel, I think to their credit, there's some usually very polarizing viewpoints within organizations on open source versus proprietary in general. And the leadership at the Weather Channel had already sort of bought into open source. So that was one hurdle that we were able to immediately cross off. The next is they wanted validation around key functionality associated to the site. So what we did was after they developed a series of criteria and a scorecard, we were shortlisted and we went in with a proof of concept, which I highly recommend for organizations that are considering a new CMS. And the proof of concept added a tremendous amount of value because they were able to see an MVP. They were able to see Drupal actually performing before they made a longer term commitment. And then we transitioned to more of a discovery and define phase, and ultimately Drupal aligned well with the key problems that they were trying to solve, which we can get into later.
So the project was finished about 13 months ago, and by the way, by point of disclosure, I was doing a project for Acquia at the time and was in the office, and there was quite a celebration. How big a migration are we talking about? Is this in terms of number of page views, and how has it changed as the product has been in service?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of looking at the infrastructure migration and taking them from, their existing infrastructure, which was running at max capacity at the time they were making the decision to move over to a different system. We took a lot of the existing metrics where they were running hot, through meetings with all of our stakeholders, the media current team, all the stakeholders within TWC. We were able to also take a look at the types of data that were coming off, and we were able to do a lot of capacity planning to kind of figure out what does that new cloud infrastructure look like. The thing you don't want to do is overplan, because you don't want your customer paying for resources that are just sitting around idle all the time, just in case. But of course, you don't want to underplan. So, taking all of that into consideration, running through some mathematical calculations, we were able to do some capacity planning on the infrastructure side. And then, with test results and everything from media occurrence development tests and load testing and everything else, we could make adjustments accordingly.
So one of the things I think a lot of people miss about these sorts of massive migrations, they sound like a major investment up front, but they also can yield immediate savings. And in this case, the big change for Weather Channel is it was never near capacity again since then, and they're actually using fewer resources.
Correct, and since the launch, we've actually been able to scale down infrastructure even more, because over time, as we're collecting more metrics on the new Drupal system, with the traffic patterns, even with some of the major, extreme weather patterns that we've seen across the world, we've kind of developed more of an accurate baseline, so we've been able to pull resources out, and essentially save TWC a lot of extra cost annually. So.
Great. Now, so what advice? We're talking about a massive migration here, but let's step back and think about a smaller company thinking about adopting a system like this. What advice do you give them, and what should they be looking for in a platform that a business user would understand? So I want to take it down just a touch from the technical. No more acronyms. Right. And what do you say? Is it a hand-holding undertaking where you're trying to lead them to understanding that all the scary acronyms are not to be afraid of, or not to be feared, or is it a matter of they already have this in their these this agenda to save money or to improve service? What do you tell them to do, and where should you or where would you tell them to invest if they're going to start on a CMS today?
Sure. So if, while Matt and I are both, Drupal and open source advocates, really what's more important than the product is the actual people behind the execution. So the advice would be, if you're a startup particularly and bootstrapping a product, to make sure you choose the right team, and that's critical, even more so than the product and the platform. So how do you do that? How do you know? Because when you go and talk to different vendors, all of them are going to tout their product and make claims that they're the best fit. So when you're evaluating teams, I think there's one thing everyone in this room has in common, and that's a reputation that precedes you. So it amazes me how when organizations are involved in an evaluation, they still do not check references. They don't look at has a partner been able to provide solutions for a similar use case that they're trying to do.
Relevant experience.
Yeah, reputation and track record is key. And then, it also just the two things that everybody wants to know when they come to, Matt and I is, how much is this website, how much is this project going to cost, and how long is it going to take?
Right.
So if you really want an accurate and confident scoping and sizing, invest in a discovery phase up front. You're much better off to find out in the beginning with a lower spend up front if you're going to have a realistic budget to accomplish the scope that you want to do.
And I think one of the critical pieces of experience that I've had with this is that it is okay to build your first site on a relatively raw platform and be ready to throw it away, because it's the usage data and the user experience feedback that you're getting that is going to determine some of the criteria for your CMS choice.
Yeah, that's correct. If you're starting from scratch, you don't have any data, you don't have historical metrics, then absolutely, you got to start somewhere. You might learn some hard lessons, but yeah.
So what projects have you worked on recently that are examples of a large-scale project like this, and what were the organizations looking for when they came to you to talk about Drupal?
Right. I mean, the one that comes to mind that's local here, Grammys. So Grammys is an unusual scenario. Grammys, 6-7 months out of the year, gets very little traffic to their site. But the weeks leading up to the event, of course, the night of the event, the exponential traffic growth.
So how much traffic on the night of the event would be?
250 million page views on the night of the event. The other thing is there is some authenticated traffic. That's something that really takes a toll on any application whenever you have people actually logged into the site.
So browsers are easier.
Yeah, you tend to lose a lot of the CDN benefits, a lot of the caching benefits.
Acronym.
CDN benefits. Content Delivery Network, basically a system that will help you deliver static content and cached pages to your users. So, but what we've been able to do, they're running on a very small infrastructure 7 months out of the year. Being in the cloud is really beneficial, because what we can do is start inserting those additional resources, scaling web servers horizontally, and then keep adding them and adding them and adding them until the night of the show, and then we can pull them offline. The great benefit, and this is with most cloud providers, is that you're only going to pay for what you're going to use. Try and do that with bare metal. Try and even do that vertical scaling on a grid server, where you just add more processor, add more memory. It's a lot more difficult to do. So definitely something beneficial, and something that Weather Channel capitalizes on as well. We have the ability to scale them horizontally.
So specifically, some of the things that Weather Channel achieved and made priorities during that project, what would you call out as an important example for a media business person considering their options?
Sure. So one of the obvious was one of the biggest differences between closed code and proprietary platforms and a system like Drupal and open source is Drupal is free. There are no licensing fees. So the Weather Channel has been pretty transparent that they're saving over 7 figures per year and not having to pay licensing fees for code, which we think is ridiculous in today's day and age. So total cost of ownership has been significantly lower. As you again heard from Ryan, content partnerships was so key, and in their incumbent platform, it was literally taking 17 or 18 clicks to publish content, and too slow when you're dealing with such critical subject matter like weather updates that could impact people's flooding and safety. So we reduced that from 17 clicks to 2 clicks. And again, when we do a lot of the polling and surveying, Mitch, it's interesting why an organization chooses a platform like Drupal is not, the number one reason isn't licensing fees or cost savings. It's really around flexibility and innovation. So I think that was the other big win here, was the fact that the Weather Channel was no longer boxed into a set of requirements. One of my favorite examples is when a lot of the social media tools like Facebook began to explode. There's literally a plugin or a module available with an open source product within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So they can instantaneously integrate key tools that they need on their site, whereas before they were literally waiting a year, 2 years for that same integration. So the level of customization that you have with Drupal is pretty amazing. You can start with a blank canvas, again, versus being boxed into a set of requirements.
So let me ask you a question about where that 24-hour turnaround comes from. In the commercial software world, you would assign a team, they would come back, give you a budget. It would take a year or two to get that plugin built. Although many companies are working faster and more agilely today. Who would provide that plugin or that module, and why should you trust it? And how do you know you can trust it?
Yeah. So there's 3 really types of development that occur within open source. There's a core set of modules that are available sort of out of the default Drupal install.
Makes the machine go.
Exactly. There's a standard set of modules. There's also a contrib set of modules that are literally donated by an international community. So Drupal has tens of thousands of developers. Why is that important? It's important because the code is seen by so many extra sets of eyes that it's seen as being a much better product, and those contrib modules can then be leveraged by other organizations. And then if you don't find a contrib module that's already been donated back to the community, you can always roll your own custom, type solution.
And if I can add to it as well, the one thing that the Drupal Association, that's the governing body of Drupal, is really good about doing is scrutiny on modules that are contributed back to the public. All of them are vetted by the Drupal security team, which is a 19-member team that literally goes through everything, looks for exploits. They're also peer-reviewed by more senior level Drupal community members for quality, best practices, and things like that. So I think that's something that Drupal is doing very well, that I think maybe some of the other open source CMS applications need to model themselves after. But that I think in itself lends a little bit more credibility to our customers when we suggest using the following contrib modules from Drupal.
So you just described a process that at Microsoft, when I was there, would have taken several weeks just to have the first meeting. How does it happen so fast? Do they literally work together on the code? What is the experience like? And if you want to use the phrase or the acronym IRC, it's okay.
There's definitely an inter-relay chat, IRC, for a lot of the Drupal developers. Big communication that way. Really where I think you see a lot of the bigger modules, modules that are more applicable to enterprise level applications is from the agencies like Acquia and Media Current and all of the other ones. we're building solutions for our customers, and what we always do is ask our customers, hey, this would be really useful to the rest of the community. There isn't currently a module that exists that does this functionality. Would you be willing to let us contribute this back? Most of them say yes.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then we add that back to the community, and people enhance it. We've even improved our customers' experiences from the original build because of other things that other people contribute back into it. So it becomes, it's cyclic, and it just grows and grows and grows.
So, and Dave, this is particularly a question for you as an outside advisor to a company considering this. How do you convince them to let one of their devs make a decision like that, to try something, and sometimes even try it in production before it ever is reviewed by anybody on the business side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just, it has to be part of your organizational DNA. Mm-hmm. At Media Current, I have about 50 developers who report into me, and we make it part of our culture. We have to be part of the international Drupal community. We want to share, we want to contribute and give back. And by doing that, we're making a stronger overall, platform for everyone else. So, especially software engineers are one of the hardest positions to fill job-wise for companies. And whenever we do surveying of our employees, what motivates them is kind of the iron sharpens iron philosophy. They want to be around, other top engineering talent. And if they feel like you're siloing them and not allowing them to be part of, an open source community, you're going to have a lot of retention issues, a lot of turnover, and you've got to be able to offer that as part of your, I think, just intangible benefits. It's a must if you're running open source at all within your company.
And so, Matt, when somebody adopts Drupal, do you recommend that they hire a Drupal team? Obviously you can retain somebody, sure, but do they need groups internally to continue to work on the software, or do you feel that's something that is more efficiently outsourced given the fact that the platform's so open?
Well, it's definitely a case-by-case basis. I think what you really need to look at is overall budget of your customer. Can they staff an internal development team of 3 or 4 developers, well into the low 6 figures? Or is it more cost-effective to continually leverage, a top-notch Drupal shop, and then get your ongoing application support and update capability from somebody like Acquia, who's right, just going to monitor and maintain the application. So it's really hard to say what the best solution is.
Well, there's not necessarily one, but
right,
but generally there must be there's a binary choice at some point to use somebody internally or not.
Sure.
Where do you find that line with a company?
I think, when we're dealing with a company who maybe has somebody, maybe their previous application was built upon the same technology as Drupal, PHP, we might be able to transition them into at least be maybe kind of that tier 1 level support, or feature requests go to them, and then anything that is kind of out of their wheelhouse and Media Current.
So you can. So you're describing splitting the budget as necessary.
You can, yeah.
Right.
But it really depends on if your budget warrants bringing in a full-time staff. We can certainly vet. Rely on your vendors to help vet those members as well if you're going to build a staff.
This actually ties back into something we were talking about, the on-demand economy earlier, and the need to train people. In this environment, is it an easy thing to undertake to learn to do open source as an organization, and how would you recommend an organization go about doing that? First, from the perspective of how to manage it, and second, from the simple competence of working with the code and the platform.
Yeah. I think it's in terms of just getting involved. I think there's numerous ways. Obviously, if you code and are on the engineering side, you can contribute your code back to the community, and part of what you automatically have as part of your processes, your code is going to be vetted and reviewed, and it's going to generally make you a better coder. For me, I never coded a day in my life, so I wanted to be able to contribute back in other ways. So I started the local meetup, started organizing a open source and Drupal camp in Atlanta for 5 years, and really try to do events like this. The one huge competitive advantage that the Adobes and established proprietary products have is, they have huge sales and marketing teams that scale. So, Drupal is much more grassroots when it comes to sales and marketing. So we have to try to do whatever we can to help kind of get the word out.
But by organizing those meetings, you also were able to staff your organization.
Yeah.
That's
and when it's
a very
amazing,
different model.
and when organizations like the Weather Channel find out what the value is of open source and Drupal, again, I can't imagine why you'd want to pay millions of dollars in licensing fees and code when they're the ultimate use case, they're the ultimate validation. If we can scale the highest traffic site in the history of the world at times, why wouldn't your organization want to look at an open source product where, with some consulting and services and assistance with kind of shepherding you through the process of migrating to an open source based web strategy, it's something you should certainly, look at and consider.
And from the technical side, what do you recommend people do?
To
keep their people skilled up, or to facilitate their people being skilled up?
Definitely participation in local Drupal community activities, teaching, giving lectures. I would also say there's a myriad of information on sites like lynda.com, Build a Module. There's tons of Drupal. Lullabot's another great place to go for lots of video training and information. But really, experience, getting in there and doing it, building projects.
So we've got about a minute and a half left. It's just about 2016. What do you think the major changes, the big events in content management or data management platforms will be over the next year?
So we'd be remiss if we didn't say that a huge milestone just occurred in Drupal. The first release in almost 5 years came out on November 19th. So just 2 years ago, Drupal 8 was officially released. So going into next year, we're seeing a lot of buzz around Drupal 8. There were over 200 advancements made for Drupal 7. So we're getting a lot of inquiries around, is now the time to do a big remigration? Is now the time to do a big redesign? Or should I wait for Drupal 8 to become, more stable? So we're excited about Drupal 8 going into 2016. We think it can be a game changer for a lot of enterprise, organizations who have complex needs, like you've heard from a lot of the prior organizations and panelists.
Yeah, I think the guts of Drupal have been ripped out and replaced with an object-oriented framework is what we call it, which really I think where Drupal and open source struggle is gaining legitimacy with the so-called real programmers, the Java developers, things like that, replacing the inner workings of Drupal with such framework, I think is really going to lend to the credibility, and I think you're going to see a lot more OOP developers start considering taking Drupal seriously.
Great. Well, we just hit 0.
All right.
Thank you both, Dave.